Good evening, everyone. I am Lisha Dure, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to One-on-One, where we bring to you some of the best minds in Trinidad and Tobago. Unfortunately, we could not have our regularly scheduled program yesterday due to schedule constraints. So let me apologize to that. I know we have many people who look out for our program on a Tuesday night at 8 p.m., but it just couldn't happen last night. However, given the extraordinary results of Monday's THA elections, we decided that we must have a special episode today. The preliminary results from the 2026 Tobago House of Assembly elections held on Monday saw a clean sweep for the Tobago People's Party, TPP, winning all 15 electoral districts. So on behalf of the team here, I have to say a heartfelt congratulations to Chief Secretary, the Honorable Farley Augustine, the Tobago People's Party, and the people of Tobago on this historic victory. And it is indeed a historic victory, as it's the second time in the last 45 years that a political party has won all of the THA seats. So you understand, given that extraordinary outcome, we must have had this program today to talk about that. According to the EBC press release that was put out yesterday, January 13th, and I'm quoting, of the total registered electorate of 53,239 voters across the 15 electoral districts in Tobago, voter turnout was recorded at approximately 50.69%. So just about 50% of the electorate would have come out. And the distribution of votes received by the political parties are as follows. IDA 181, PNM 10,456, TPP 16,240, and UTP 8. So what we saw there is the TPP winning by almost 6,000 votes, indeed a very, very huge margin. There was, however, a noticeable drop in voter turnout compared to the 2021 THA elections. The electorate was 51,383, and voter turnout was then 56.97%. So what we are seeing really is the electorate increasing by 2,000 voters, approximately 2,000 voters, but yet the voter turnout dropping by 6%, which is very noticeable. So this is just a brief recap of some of the statistics that came out of this historic election. And this is, of course, great news for the TPP, but very, very bad news for the opposition, PNM. In a statement issued on Tuesday, PNM leader, opposition leader as well, Penelope Beckers, would have congratulated the TPP and its leader, Chief Secretary Farley Augustine. However, she would have noted at the same time, the PNM understands, I'm quoting from her statement, the PNM understands the necessity of reflection as we work toward rebuilding our party and regaining the trust and confidence of the people. For noting as well, PNM Tobago Council leader, Mr. Ansel Dennis, who was a candidate in the THA election, has indicated that he will resign his post. So tonight we are joined by political analyst, Dr. Shane Mohammed. I was just saying to Dr. Mohammed that I'm so surprised and pleased that he could come on our platform tonight, because it's as soon as you look at the newspaper, you turn on the TV, Dr. Mohammed is there, you know. He was widely consulted for his analysis and predictions on the THA elections. And also for the first time on our platform, we have TPP political activist, Mr. Bevon Dennis, a strong activist on the ground who would have screened for one of the TPP seats. Just give me a minute. Let me just turn off my phone. Right. Okay. Sorry about that. So I would like to say welcome to both of these gentlemen. We are very anxious to hear what they have to say about the outcome of the THA elections, what this means for the people of Tobago, and of course, for the people of Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you, our viewers who are joining us on Zoom and social media. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Please share the link, right? We want as many people to join us as possible. You can come on to the Zoom if you wish to interact directly with Dr. Mohammed or Mr. Dennis. Ask your question, make your contribution. As usual, we want to make this session as interactive as possible. We put you in touch directly with the panelists, and this is one of the ways we differentiate our program from others that exist out there. So without further ado, let me pass the mic over to my very capable co-moderator, Mr. Donnie Rogers, who will give his opening remarks and kick off our discussion tonight. Donnie, over to you.
Good night, Lisha. Thank you. Good night to our viewers and to our two honored guests. Dr. Mohammed, I know he's a guy he don't ever tell us no. He always is very accommodating to us, and we're very thankful for that. To Bevon Dennis, Lisha, I think it's the first time we have a Tobagonian on our program. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the first time discussing fundamental Tobago issues. So this is a milestone. It's something we could look at.
I was thinking that now this incarnation of the program definitely, but we need to do a little bit more building of relationships with people in Tobago so that they could come on our program more. So, Bevon, we are absolutely delighted to have you here tonight, right? So, and I hope it's not going to be your last time.
No, definitely would not be his last time. I could speak for Bevon in that regard. Bevon is a very good friend of mine. I've known him for a very long time, and he, as well as Dr. Mohammed, are two honorable, very straightforward gentlemen. First and foremost, hats off to the TPP, to their leadership. They have expressed statistically what the ground in Tobago is feeling. And the lead up to the election was very contentious. I think it was probably one of the most contentious elections in Tobago, where they had little squabbles and, all kind of mudslinging all over the place. Let's put it, plain. And I think in this regard, the people of Tobago have put their voices very resoundingly to indicate where they stand. We have seen a couple of interviews on the mainstream media, and generally the people are they have spoken and they have said empirically that this is what they want, and now is Farley's time, as they put it. Right. So without further ado, what we're going to do is that we're going to have the opening settings, I think, from Dr. Mohammed, and then we will get into a little bit more detail on the ground from what Mr. Dennis would have experienced on the ground. What was the lead up to the election like? What was the atmosphere for the election? And what, from his experience and from the campaign promises, what are some of the things we could expect to happen in Tobago now? I mean, Tobago has been developing at a good pace. And this continuation of the administration for Tobago will augur well to the continuation of projects and to the development of Tobago. So we anticipate what you guys have to say. It's all yours. Over to you, Dr. Mohammed.
Well, thank you so very much for having me. I really and truly, I took a little bit of a break yesterday, and I've done two. This is my second interview for the evening. And I will say this. Going into the election, there was no doubt in my mind at all. I had no doubts whatsoever that there was going to be a TPP victory. And on one of the other stations that I would have sat on, I said to them, the reason I am so confident is that I will have a very difficult time understanding how or why the people of Tobago would vote against the TPP, given the fact that, one, the TPP, and I give credit to them for, and I utilize a term that was orchestrated by both Mr. Pandey and Mr. Manning back in the day, where the TPP, given all of its struggles in relation to the relationship and the adversarial relationship, I should say, it experienced from the PNM administration and Keith Rowley. They were able to do a lot with little. And having to do that is not an easy task, given also that there was a great level of disrespect that I felt the TPP as a whole, the administration as a whole, but the chief secretary as well experienced from the former prime minister, because, and I hear everybody saying former, but I still say former because I do the one in the middle doesn't count. You know, you can't, I don't believe in giving a man a title who served for 30 days or less. But the bottom line is, it continued to prove, and the reason why I also didn't want to go all the way to 15-0 is because the time lapse, even though I understood the internal issues that was facing the PNM, you still never know what the behavior and how passionate the base of a party will feel to be able to ignite itself to at least try to keep the one seat that they had. But even in winning that one seat, I whispered on set to another to member of the PNM actually. I said, I believe your membership whispered a very quiet good riddance to even its minority leader, because I personally don't believe that he did a good job in representing the minority, and he lost oomph very quickly and was found to be, he became a political nuisance, not targeting the points that he wanted to raise, not being strategic in the points that he made. And I think he is partly responsible, very much so, by some of his utterances on the campaign, for the level of low that it went into in the campaign. And it also spoke to, when people go that low in a political campaign, it means they've run out of steam on one instance, and they've also run out of the ability to articulate any more plans. And therefore, even within their quiet moments, they would see the writing on the wall. And I'll close by saying this. One of the indicators of that was that whilst the motorcades on Sunday night were coming to a close, so let's just say all around Crown Point, even up to about 10:30, the music trucks were still blaring, the noise was still there, people were still on the road, motorcades had not completely finished yet. Even that late, I happened to look through my phone at 9:30, 9:31 to be exact, because the time was, I wanted to be specific about the time. I saw a very defeated gentleman by the name of Kelvin Morris, who was doing a live on Facebook. And on the live, there were 31 people at 9:31 looking and listening to him. And I said, what a very, normally at 9:31, you're saying your little prayers, you're thanking your people, you're wrapping things up, you're getting ready for the morning that starts at about 3, 4 o'clock to put the infrastructures in place and whatnot. And you were doing a live, and a live with a very, very minimal people, but there was no tempo. Somebody said to me, maybe he was exhausted. I said, well, then don't do a live, because that also leaves a last impression. So, hats off to them. Very well done. Great expectations to come from a governance perspective. I call it cataclysmic governance, not catastrophic governance. And I am really looking forward to this new generation of leadership on the island of Tobago, teaching Trinidad and Tobago what good governance and delivery looks like.
Thank you for that, Dr. Mohammed. Let's go right into Mr. Dennis. Let's get your opening as to the lead up, what you experience on the ground, and what you think, based on campaign promises, Tobagonians can look forward to.
Well, let me say a pleasant evening to the viewership, and let me say good evening to Dr. Mohammed and yourself, Roger, and the other member. I can't remember her name at the moment.
Leisha,
right. I should write that down. Mr. Leisha. So let me say good afternoon to you, and I really appreciate the request to join you on set tonight to discuss political matters as it pertains to Tobago and the recently concluded THA elections. So I must say that very exciting event. Of course, we are now a bit relaxed from several months of anticipation and anxiety. The lead up, of course, the political leader of the Tobago People's Party having the election time frame and then the election dates in, as we say, their pockets. So that anxiety, and of course, the whole selection process of candidates. And I must tell you, that process was a very rigorous one for the TPP, going through several days of selections. I think we had over 50. We had over 50 combined persons who put forward themselves for the TPP in all 15 districts. Even where we had in the Bethel, New Grange area, we had 10 persons, right? And coming out of that very rigorous process, individuals,
You would
of
have
course, who are
been,
now,
just for the record, Bevon, sorry to cut you, you would have been
yes,
one of those applicants, right? Yes, yes.
yes. I put forward myself as a potential candidate for the district, the area of Mason Hall, Moriah. Now is Mason Hall, North Moriah, because we
Yeah.
had a almost last minute change. So in this area, we had 4 persons. Myself, we had Mr. Ian Pollard, Whitey Pollard. We had Mr. Stewart, Alan Stewart, and Latoya Hosford. Of course,
Okay.
Mr. Pollard, he came away with the nudge and he went forward to capture the area North
Right.
Moriah for the district, right, concluding, of course, one of the 15 seats. So very, very exciting. We had, in some instances, almost a carnival-like atmosphere, persons coming in with their supporters, different ways, people supporting them to get the nudge. Of course, as we looked at the campaign on the ground, having had the dates, we moved in various communities. Now, very different from what others who did not actually do ground to ground campaigning, walking in the districts, each community talking to persons. You would have a different feel because, of course, you would pull from the media, you would pull from what is on social media mainly, and
Yeah.
the hype and the energy of others going forward. But I could tell you, as almost, let's say, a seasoned campaigner on the ground, I saw, once the Tobago population came out, I saw a clear 15. I saw a clear 15 because I also did a lot of work in the general election. That was
Right.
of course, Mr. David Thomas, and we had Mr. Of course, Notsi being in the West, Joel Sampson. So I
Yeah.
knew the feeling of the people on the ground. Now, where you had some toss up in terms of where the numbers would go, a number of persons, of course, on the island would have looked forward to more in the past 4 years from their representatives. Of course, promises were made, and having gone in there, of course, the TPP looked at a situation where finances, you need financing, you need it on a regular basis, you need it on time to really be able to execute. And of course, we had some challenges with that, and many projects that were promised, I believe some started, many things happened in the background, but a lot of persons felt that they did not get the type of representation. So you got a situation where some persons were a bit up in arms with their particular assemblyman in that district, in various districts. But I could tell you, all in all, throughout the districts, we had a very strong support, even from persons who did not vote. Because as I spoke to persons after, and even during the campaign, I felt that some persons were still very hesitant. And it wasn't because they did not support the administration. It was because, in some regards, some persons were a bit frustrated over years of being, in my words, battered and bruised by the PNM administration, over years of promises. You know, you get tired. So I would say the persons who pushed forward, I mean, we got the percentages, the over 16,000 persons supporting the TPP, which represents 30%, right? And we had, of course, 11,000 with the PNM. But this shows that there is a greater majority, of course, really wanting Tobago to move forward in its development. So it brings us to the idea of the autonomy. And for years, the Tobagonian has been pushing. We had A.N.R. Robinson, we had persons before him, we had Ho-Choi Charles, we even had Orville London, and even the last administration, we looked at the question of autonomy. What is very significant on the ground and why we see that more persons are supporting the TPP is because the Tobagonian has never let go of that question of autonomy. I think we had an opportunity with the 6-6 where persons looked at a divine position where Tobagonians, both the PNM and at that time the PDP, could have joined forces in some manner to really balance the prospects of Tobago and bring home our autonomy. It did not happen. And if you understand the Tobago mindset and the Tobago culture, we are one family. We may fight, we may squabble, but we will discipline our own. And very early, I heard Lisa speak of, and I heard Mr. Mohammed, Dr. Mohammed, speak to the question of disrespect. If you disrespect the Tobagonian, if you don't have good manners and respect at home, we will discipline you. So I felt that the outgoing, the now ex-former Prime Minister, in many ways were disrespectful, and he allowed a following behind him to disrespect the Tobago population. And you will pay a heavy price for that. You will pay a heavy price for that. So leading up, you felt the differences, of course, with families. In the homes of many of the Tobagonian, you have mixed, some persons supporting, of course, PNM, some supporting the TPP, but we are all essentially knit together. And if you come against all of us, of course, we will remember you and we'll make you pay. And
question, sorry to cut you.
Yes.
But before we go too far past this, you raised the issue of the autonomy for Tobago, and that is clearly one of the most burning topics that Tobagonians would have right now. And not right now, I mean even in the past. And as you just spoke about the quote-unquote disrespect from the former PNM, you know, when they were in government before April of last year, I want to ask you a very specific question because Chief Secretary Augustine was there under the PNM government at that time. In your opinion, how was the question of autonomy treated during that period? Was it something that was pursued? Was it something that was just spoken about and you all reached nowhere? Was it something that you felt that was held back, you know, by the powers that be? Let's put it like that, right? How was autonomy dealt with under the last administration?
Well, I would say for a point, not within the last period, before that, the last 4-year period, before that, we had some, of course, robust conversations about the autonomy. We had, of course, the autonomy bill, right? We had bills coming forward, but critical were understanding Tobago's boundaries, all right? And of course, giving Tobago a lot of wings to be able to, in many ways, employ the kind of development strategies that would allow that growth of Tobago. All right. If you understand, the THA employs 70 and more % of the population in Tobago, and for any island to really grow, that is a situation that is not going to really work out. We have 60,000 approximately here, not enough to really push the kinds of development. So of course, we need more. We need more persons coming in here, really supporting the island. But we also need the legislative grounding to support policies, right? Because it does not make sense. The THA is limited in its policy-driven ideas. If we don't have the legislation, things fall along. So critically, when we looked at that, some of those areas were lacking, and there was a feeling by many Tobagonians that we needed to have those areas ironed out properly. And we felt that there was a holding back of some key legislative changes which would allow the THA, within the scope of the THA Act, to really be able to set the groundwork for that development of Tobago.
I understand. Yeah. So how do you see Tobago going forward now? What do you see based on the campaign promises? How do you see things unfolding? I mean, with all things being equal, what do you think, can happen? What do you think is going to take place?
Well, up front, I could see a better relationship between the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government. In the last PNM run regime, of course, where you had Farley'S being the chief sec for that period, and we had Mr. Rowley being the prime minister, we had strained relations, right? We did not have the kind of cooperation and the cohesiveness that Tobagonians would have really loved to see, recognizing the former prime minister as a Tobagonian himself. Moving forward, we have recognized that this new administration under the Kamla Persad run administration seems to be a little more open, or I should say much more open, to listening and partnering with the THA, working with the THA to really give Tobago some ease in terms of what they would have been working towards. Just today, actually, I saw the Attorney General, John Jeremy. I saw where there were moves, or there will be moves, to increase the number of secretaries that should be functioning within the Tobago space in the THA.
Yes.
And I think in many ways that would allow for the real workings of each district, and bringing a closer relationship between the persons in these communities, the man on the ground, giving them that feeling that yes, they are able now to see more, feel more, and have that involvement in the governance, or even, let's say, how their participation is felt. They feel more of input will be made to have persons in communities, give them more access to resources, give them more access to the assemblymen who will now work with them to build their communities.
So in a nutshell, you're saying under this current administration, the Kamala Persad-Bissessar-led administration, Tobagonians feel more inclusive towards their national goals? Is it that, in a nutshell, what we're trying to drive here today?
Well, yes, I got a clearer sense that we feel less anxiety. I mean, of course, having a vision is one thing, but of course, action. We have seen that the Prime Minister has made some bold, actionable statements, and we are still examining, we are still looking to see more. We believe, based on what has been said so far, and of course recently by the Attorney General, that there is that intent. There is that intent to really have, and I must say, even when we looked at the budget, Tobago getting the largest share in
historically.
I think historically.
Correct.
When you look at the recurrent expenditure, when you look at the developmental budget, right there, we are seeing that commitment from the get-go. Yes. And of course, that is very pleasing for us. That has been something we have been pushing for a very, very long time, to push our projects and programs on the island of Tobago.
Yes. I see now, agriculture is my forte, and I saw right before the elections, Chief Secretary would have announced, I think it's 4 or 5 mega farms would have been commencing. So, I mean, at least in agriculture, we are seeing the move towards food production and sustainability and food security, more importantly, when we look at the bigger question. So these projects are things that I think, hopefully, we'll see continued, especially since, we have the continuation in administration. Looking at the time, it's 8:42. Lisha, do you have any questions?
Well, I've been monitoring the chats as I
yes.
ask my questions, taking a cue from some of the comments on the chat. Now I'm seeing some things about the PNM brand of politics have come and gone long time, right? And other comments of that nature. I want to turn to Shane now, Dr. Mohammed. And of course, Dennis, Mr. Dennis, you feel free to come in.
Yes.
How imagine is this 15-0 defeat for the PNM, both at a psychological and structural level?
You see, the thing about it is, what the PNM did not want to admit, and when the PNM lost the general election and they got the new leader and the new leadership emerged, one of the things that I said in the public space was that Farley'S house is still on fire. My advice for the new political leader would to throw some gas and let it burn down, and let she could start from scratch again. But I said this, going into the THA election, the smoke may have been still emanating out of Farley'S house, but there was a trail of fire that was extending into Tobago's version of Farley'S house, and that was still on fire. And that is the reason. The reason for that.
One on the big, 6-story Farley'S that they
burn it all down, burn it down. Throw some gas, burn it down, melt the iron, let me start over, right? That's what you do when the house is on fire. But there was a residual fire that was burning in Tobago. And the reason for that, and another thing that I kept asking, even during the course of the campaign, is who is your leader? Because a party cannot have 2 leaders and 3 leaders. And as far as I am concerned, just on the cusp of the THA elections, there was I was trying to figure out who is the leader, because you had a political leader and opposition leader that was making platform presentations and appearances. But then there was another person who said they had retired from politics but wanted to have some kind of forum in the Tobago space on 2 occasions, in fact, and on the 2 occasions it was postponed. And the thing about it is, maybe if that individual had actually had an appearance in Tobago, then the election results that Mr. Dennis, but Bevon and others were looking at might have come earlier. It would have probably been there at 7 o'clock. There would have been whoosh, 17,
Yeah,
15
yeah.
seats, right? There would have been no lull. Because you see, there's a lot of damage, not just done to Trinidad and Tobago society, right? There's a lot of damage that this individual has done to the psychology and the emotional ties of the PNM supporters that have been traditionally die-hard PNM. So he didn't only hurt the people of Trinidad and Tobago, but the people of the PNM were also twice or three times as hurt by the machinations or imaginations of Keith Rowley. So what this election result also incorporated was the complete dissatisfaction of the People's National Movement supporters, indicating that they wanted no Ansel Dennis, no Kelvin Morris, anything that looked, smelled, resembled, behaved, acted, showed an allegiance to Keith Rowley. Because when one retires, everybody must go. So I had whispered on the night of the election to one of the panelists that if Dennis had in fact lost his seat, he should immediately indicate his resignation and go. But I'll tell you this, I also noted that in his concession speech, he also wanted to dictate to Kelvin Morris, who was for the first time experiencing what political licks felt like. So in the midst of him adjusting to the full whale up that he got in whim from the TPP, he had to also consider in his mind that Ansel Dennis was projecting that there was going to be the intention for him, for the PNM to do the recount yesterday. In addition to that, when the mic was passed to Morris, he himself was saying, listen, let's get past tonight. Any decision on a recount and all of that, I'll make that decision tomorrow. We didn't even get up good and sip enough coffee on yesterday morning when we know that there was going to be a recount. And obviously today the recount resulted in the same result of licks, and more licks. But what it does now is that it sets the stage, this complete, well, the fire burned down everything. So, and the election, the TPP just continued to throw gas and they help. What it does now is that it sets the tone for Penny Beckles to actually figure out what her leadership would look like of the PNM, to have an idea what she's going to do with regard to Tobago in the PNM there, how she's going to construct it, look at who is best poised to, who has the passion for the party, who has who aligns with her vision for the party and whatnot. So it gives them the chance to have to start to build and fix the windows and the roof and all the damage that the fire would have done and the election blows would have done, get past that. But this is, while, and I did say this, while this is, and others wouldn't say it, but I will say it, while this is a defeat for the PNM, the Tobago election defeat is a defeat for the PNM, really and truly it is a victory for Penny Beckles. Finally, she's gotten a chance to look at the people of Tobago and the people of Trinidad, the membership and supporters of the PNM in Tobago, and the membership and the supporters of the PNM in Trinidad has collectively now and wholeheartedly said to Keith Rowley, farewell, goodbye, we don't want no part of you. Go into retirement as you promised, and let us see what we can do and how we can catch ourselves in time for the next round of elections.
So I want to ask you something. Do you think if Keith Rowley had stayed out of this election and kept his distance from the politics, do you think that the PNM would have gotten a better result in Tobago?
I don't know that the PNM would have gotten past one in Tobago. Because on top of that, a lot of PNM supporters will tell you, and even members of the PNM's hierarchy in Tobago will tell you, that several of their candidates lack the oomph factor. They were not known. They did not resonate. They did not relate. They did not, you didn't know where they came from. And I think one of the flaws in the PNM, but also could be a strategy on Penny Beckers. I can't think for her or think about what she's doing, but it might have been smarter politics if upon the election of Mrs. Beckers as political leader of the PNM, if there was some kind of discussion about her having an opportunity to examine the candidates. So, for example, in the aftermath of the general election, and I'm very happy to say that I saw something yesterday. I had a chance to go into Tobago East yesterday, and I stopped by one of the offices just to get to look at the different dynamics in terms of the difference in the politics between Trinidad and Tobago and everything. And I was up in the East, and I saw on one of their offices, they had an entire map of Tobago that outlined what the 2021 results looked like, green into red. And then there was another map that outlined each electoral district in Tobago in the aftermath of the 2025 general election. And those 5 seats that I continued to talk about, I was so impressed that a political party actually took the time to put on a map the 5 seats that they had to pay special attention to, that they needed to ensure that they closed the gaps and opened up the margins between the TPP and the PNM in this THA election in order to capture the 15-0. And obviously, I would not have had the knowledge before because I had not gone to any political offices in the run-up to the election. But when I saw it, it also carried through in my mind that they were very well prepared from a strategic level, from a political level, from a knowledge level, from an activation level. They were very well prepared for the election, which then said to me, there is a reason why they ended up with a 15-0 result, which they must be congratulated on, because it was very impressive that they took the actual political science and turned it into something on a map, so that they were utilizing data that was practical and realistic. So in the end, it was the perfect combination, really, really good strategies that went into play, and they yielded the results. So in terms of Keith Rowley, there's a maybe. I don't know that he would have had an impact to the point where, if he had come in, I think he would have turned people off more. And the fact that he tried to come in had already turned people off. So there was if he stayed out, I don't know that it would have come down to more than them winning just one. But given the organization that I saw yesterday and what they had mapped out and all of that, then they were going for blood, and blood is what they got.
Well, if I may, Dr. Mohammed, I think you're spot on in that. I don't think that even with assistance, the PNM would have received more than one seat. Because comparatively from 21 to 26, in this election, they would have lost, I think, about 1,500 votes this time. And
the PNM?
Yeah.
6,000 votes.
They would have lost 1,500 votes compared to 2021.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is significant for the size of polling districts in Tobago. Yeah. So I think statistically, it would have been near impossible to get past even one with assistance of the subtraction of people, if you put it like that. And I think everyone, there was the feeling on the ground that this was going to be a whitewash. We didn't know the term was a blue wash. Because the last time we heard about it was in the days of, Orville London, when there was a 12-0, right? And I think on the ground that people were feeling it. It's just that they were of the opinion that, this is too good to be true, and that is why I think most, if not all, because I haven't heard anyone prior to the results say 15-0. I mean, I could be wrong, but I didn't hear it. Everyone was saying 14-1 because the one was a typical strong point. Dennis, you could correct me. I believe that is the minority leader's seat, right?
It is.
So it would be near impossible for someone to think that that would be lost as well. But it happened. So I think really statistically it showed that the ground has spoken, and
Yeah.
the not just the ground has spoken, but whatever it is the PNM did and has been doing, and however they treated Tobagonians, it wasn't welcome anymore. You know?
No. I mean,
Uh,
it's a scandalous courtesy. I mean,
Yeah.
Tobagonians have been experienced. I mean, it got even worse when it was bad in the first 2021 THA election in the 6-6. I mean, that behavior of Tracy Davidson, I mean, she walks around telling to people in Tobago she doesn't know what she did to me, but there's nothing. It's a matter of me observing political behaviors and that sort of thing. And one mustn't let their aspirations get the better of them. Now, she was hoping to position herself to be the first female chief secretary in 2021, and she wanted that to happen so badly. She was ignorant of the fact that there was an equal number of seats. She also didn't read into the fact that her own political leader was saying to her, well, this may not be the time for you to take up this fight, but you should try to settle because it's equal. It's so there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's a clear equal play here. Come to some, I mean, I don't know if she expected Keith Rowley back then to read and spell for her, but what he was saying is that don't necessarily chase after being the first female chief secretary. You are on the cusp, because obviously a new election would have been the obvious thing. But he was saying to her in not so many words, negotiate, come to an agreement that would have sustained a PNM victory. In the end, she did the complete opposite. And in the end, what it did, it resulted in a massive curtail of 14-1. And that, to me, was based on squarely the ignorance of the PNM in Tobago, the ignorance of Tracy Davidson Celestin in Tobago, the behavior that they felt they could have bullied the then PDP and talked to them in a particular way, rather than treat them as equals because it was 6-6. Talk to them as if they were not assemblymen when they were. And the Tobagonian people observed that very carefully and waited 11 months to say, you know what, late as breads. And then even when they won in the 14-1, Keith Rowley treated the people as if they were not Tobagonians, as if they were not one. I mean, he wanted to own Tobagonians conditionally. So he wanted to be a Tobagonian and embrace Tobagonian only when Tobago was associated with him. And he treated the chief secretary and the THA executive with a scant disrespect and discourtesy, spoke to them in a way that I felt sometimes I didn't have the patience to deal with it. If I was in the political gauntlet, I would have been absolutely and utterly disrespectful to this man. And that is something we did not see coming from the chief secretary. So therefore, this rise to 15-0 is also a signaling that we don't want you all you're not good for us. You all are still toxic. You all don't resonate with us. You all are not relatable to us. You all still think you all are better than us. And worse yet, having just worked for 9 months with a new government, gotten a new budget, one that allocated significant amount of sums for the development of Tobago, not just the recurrent and expenditure, but also development plans for Tobago, including the allocation of massive sums within ministries for development work aligned to the governance of Tobago. I cannot, in any rational, see how Tobagonians were going to reject that. Even so, this is the closest that Tobagonians has ever gotten to actual autonomy. And what that autonomy looks like, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what the paper looks like, what the vision looks like. Why would they, and having worked, observing and seeing for themselves what the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago looks like after so many years, it would have been crazy for them. I mean, the PNM had to come real good and they didn't even come at all, but it would have been also not, it would have been completely unobjective and irrational for them to vote any other way, given that there's a synchronization of beliefs. I mean, Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa also has a deep-rooted connection with Tobago because of A.N.R. Robinson and her involvement in the NAR. So and her relationship and friendships that also resonate with persons in Tobago in terms of political figures. So all of that, you could only imagine that not only is she pleased and happy and for the result, but there is a clear path that you can see that Tobago is going to be on. And I really and truly look forward to seeing what the development of Tobago looks like at the end of this 5 years.
That is why I asked Mr. Dennis earlier on, what was the relationship like? How did Tobagonians feel under the last central government? And I think now Tobagonians, they are faced with two things. They are hearing a different type of conversation. As Mr. Dennis said, Tobagonians are now feel comfortable, and they're not just hearing it, they're not just feeling it, but they're actually seeing it with regards to the allocations and stuff like that. So it's not pie in the sky talk, it's not promises, it's actually we are saying we are going to do something, we are doing it, and it is actually showing the results to the people of Tobago. So obviously that would have changed the mindset of the people in Tobago, and they would have seen now, okay, our chief secretary now has a good relationship, Tobago is being developed, we as Tobagonians could get what we want, and again I will say, I believe that autonomy is at the top of that, because whenever you speak to Tobagonians, whenever you get the conversation coming out of Tobago, it always hinges around autonomy. So I think it was the perfect set of ingredients and the right amount of ingredients. It just created that situation where the voter turnout said something, because we know the mindset of a hardcore PNM supporter. They prefer not to come out and vote rather than to change the vote. And in this rounds, there was a publication where the PNM would have lost 1,500 votes, although there were 2,000 more eligible voters, right?
No,
And that says something.
I'm
That says something.
Donnie, I'm just taking my cue again from the
Sure, yes.
right discussions on the chat, and I see a few comments pertaining to the, well, not poor voter turnout. I mean, it decreased by 6% or so, right? But perhaps maybe Dr. Mohammed and Mr. Dennis could give us some insight into that reduced voter turnout.
Yes, the thing about it is, what we saw was not a low voter turnout. You know, there was a peddling. So what I was looking at during the course of the night was based on very preliminary results. And I mean, all of us who's been involved in elections, been involved in counting votes and all of that, the process is one where, and I see a commentator, which Alicia and Donnie, I blame you all for some of these comments, people who have morphed into commentators. They are now nuisances, they are intellectual nuisances. But one particular person was beating the point about 23 to 28%. Now, that for me, yesterday morning, it just didn't add up. Because even if I measured, looked at possible low turnout based on very, very preliminary results at 9 o'clock in the night, looking at not having the final numbers up to now, we still waiting on EBC to give it us. But there was a rough calculation, nothing that I could have given concrete to. Even if I minused the rough calculation of a possible drop of 500 voters per electoral district, which would have resulted in 7,500 votes. 7,500 votes from 26,000 votes is 21,000 something votes. It did not make sense. For me, it was too low. It was absolutely too low, and there had to be something cataclysmically wrong with governance, with the TPP, with the PNM as well, for such a large majority of persons to withhold their vote. What we saw was not a low voter turnout. Anything lower than 50% would have been low. But the fact that it was marginally more moderate. So it was not bad. Taking into consideration that a significant number of PNM voters did not vote. Taking into consideration that the 16,000 people that voted for the TPP in the general election sustained by 90-something votes. There was only a drop of about 90-something people. So in the end, the PDP's base and support, not their storage voters, which will be the people who will say, them safe, them inside, me ain't coming to vote. All you're good. I will send the champagne for all you. I would send the food for you all, but me ain't bothering to come and hustle up myself to vote because I know all you inside. That very same person, if things were critically bad, you would have felt it on the ground. And if things were so bad, the people who in storage who would have said, sending the food and sending the champagne would have make it their business to come out and vote. We still didn't talk about that storage of voters that the PDP has that can make massive movements. So there's that storage. It is the PNM people who did not come out and vote, the ones who them have in storage, the one who does normally vote for them. And then in the middle, the swing voters that are there did not come out at all to swing anything against, because clearly they normally swing voters come out to go to defend or they come out to change, and they chose not to come out this time. Why? Because they were satisfied at the very least as to what is going on.
Correct.
Notwithstanding that, 50.89% is still a good number, because it could have been worse, and then we would have had to have a different conversation as to why and how and when. But the fact of the matter is that in the last 9 months, given all the narratives that has been tried and tested and put in there, and I mean the level of fakeness and the misinformation out there, it did not influence TPP voters, and that is something we have to take into consideration.
Bevon, I want you to maybe give us some insight, being a man on the ground. I mean, you're like me, you're on the ground, right? So you interact with the electorate probably daily. And what do you think are some of the reasons people may not have come out to vote?
Well, again, some persons would have still held on to that bitter taste between the initial fallout between Watson Duke and Farley, right? Because, initially the PDP is what really started this revolution. So you had persons loyal to that revolution and loyal to Mr. Duke in many quarters. And some of them still had that bitterness in their mouth. And while they would not support the PNM, some felt that maybe this administration was not yet mature enough for them to solidly give their vote behind them. I mean, at least this, comment, you had persons commenting on that. Another would be persons in a localized election, in the THA election, they look at the people, they look at the person who you are sending up. So you really had to be careful that person would really get the support of the community. And I think when we looked at the Kelvin Morris seat, in the last election, Kelvin won that seat within a margin of about 3 votes. And we didn't have a contesting of a recount, right? That was given. So the margin was extraordinarily narrow there. So, of course, looking at it on the ground, you would see that there is an opportunity to capture that seat. So you had to focus your attention on having a mix between the right candidates, because the person capturing that district was Ricky Joe Field, and he has been, of course, a newcomer. He has not been seen or heard on the political scene as an activist. So anything like that, you would not have heard about him. But if you know about Mr. Joe Field and, of course, the dynamics coming out from there, we knew that he would definitely be able to give Kelvin a serious run for his money. And, of course, the result demonstrated that in him capturing that seat from Mr. Morris. So personalized feelings, of course, by the Tobagonian. And, you know, the race card politics. I mean, sadly to say, you know, you had a lot of that still coming out from the other side, you know, permeating the ground and persons having that deja vu moment from the Calcutta ship and things like that. And it is real. It is real. And the PNM understands that type of dirty politics. But the reality is the real majority of voters, as we saw, who came out, the solid ones who are resilient to this kind of narrative, they clearly showed that this did not impact on them. It was water on duck's back. So I anticipate going forward in the next 4 years that once the THA gets the support from their central administration and the government, and a lot of these promises are able to come to fruition, and we can see some changes, some real changes, I must say, in the air bridge, the sea bridge. You know, these have been sore points. And I mean, 3 key areas to make mention. Of course, we looked at agriculture. We must seriously look at tourism. All right. And a major point here for us is our capacity to earn forex, to develop the island in such a way where the dependency is reduced. And we could move to a place of real employment where the THA sheds some of the burden, and we can have persons really having full-time employment instead of the 10 days and that kind of short-term employment. So even looking at what the Prime Minister said, in giving persons that option of full-time employment and considering that, I think that is very significant, because one of the issues is how do we maintain our mortgages? How do we maintain families when, you know, we basically live in a situation where our contract, short-term contract, 1 year, well, now we have basically within 3 years. But the banks don't really recognize you with such short-term employment. So if we have some of those things happening, definitely, I think we should see a greater voter turnout in the next rounds, and greater confidence being given by the government and the THA as it moves to gain the autonomy and develop the policies which are needed.
Okay, so, you know, I'm hearing some very powerful things. I mean, we spoke at length about autonomy, the development of Tobago, the better relationship that the THA seems to have with this current government as opposed to the previous one, right? All of those are some very valid points. And the development of Tobago is indeed very critical to develop the development of our twin island state of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, so the development of Tobago is something that we cannot take lightly.
Yes.
I cannot believe it's 9:13 already. I cannot believe it. I don't know where that time went. I am seeing a few people on the Zoom with us. If you want to, if any of you would like to make any contribution, ask a question. Now is the time. We tend to wrap up around 9:30. We will do so, of course. Right, I am seeing a question from Michael on social media. Good night to everybody on social media. Thank you for joining us. Michael is asking, now that the election is over and the results is as it is, what can be done to create a balance in the THA as it relates to some type of supervision of the executive? Now, the Attorney General, the Honorable John Jeremy, would have held a press conference today, and he spoke about some of the key legislation that we are to expect in the Parliament sittings from this week onwards. One such piece of legislation was the Tobago House of Assembly Amendment Bill, and what that bill will seek to do is increase the number of secretaries and raise the quorum to conduct business in the assembly, right? So I want to encourage you guys to tune into the Parliament. I'm not sure they usually start up at 1:30 on Friday. House of
1:30.
Yeah, right. I believe the invitation, the link for the coverage on YouTube and so on should be out already. So please tune into that debate and you'll get more information on that. Dr. Mohammed, I don't know if you have anything or Mr. Dennis, anything to add to that.
It's just to say that if with the question after the balance in Tobago, the balance in Tobago really and truly lies with how the new administration, well, I note that the Chief Secretary said that he's going to create a forum where discussions and consultations, disagreements, dissent and whatnot can be ventilated. That's one. So effective communication. Two, in creating that forum, people must now make use of it and participate. So you can't expect and the question to come up about balance. And when the Chief Secretary creates the opportunity for people to participate, nobody comes, right? So that's one. But on the flip side, I think balance really depends on the PNM and what their strategies are in terms of how quickly they are able to recalibrate themselves, and what structures and functions and frameworks they put in place to ask legitimate questions. Now, and I key to the statement is the legitimate questions, because you don't want to turn your forum and become a shadow, but then become a nuisance and be like a patong running every tire that pass on the road. So I think what is critical is that they put enough persons who has the intellectual capacity and capability, who will then ask legitimate questions that touch and concern the daily lives of, and touch and concern the dissent that may or may not exist, but more likely may exist among the population, not just PNM supporters. Because if you are projecting yourself to be an alternative, you have to come with a new strategy and a new approach. If you are doing things the same way, well, then nobody's going to take you on. So for the purposes of answering the question about balance, on the one hand, you have the administration indicating how they're going to try to attempt to maintain balance, but balance is also dependent on the opposing parties and what framework and structures they put for themselves to become that legitimate, rational, reasonable balance, and not just simply noise in the space.
Bevon, you had something you wanted to add?
Well, I would say that in measure, I support the statements made by Dr. Mohammed. The reality is, everybody looks forward to the opportunity to manage and manage in full. You don't want, as he said, the potong running you down every minute, and of course, it leaves opportunity for people to misbehave. All right, it leaves opportunity for persons to misbehave. While they should be focused on really governing fairly. But what I could tell you, rest assured, that the Tobago population is not as massive as others, very small, but I could tell you, if this administration, I support the TPP, but if this administration fails to do the work and to do and perform in this term, as they would have promised and they would have given that God-blessed opportunity, the people will judge them. We will judge our own. The people will judge them. The Tobagonian, I'm telling you, they will not fail, because you see, we are seasoned. In Tobago, we are seasoned to election. They are seasoned over a long time with the PNM. So we are more politically aware than you would imagine. And I mean, I think the Tobago voter population, we set the stage, we give the standards, and we lead the course for others to follow. And that is because we see through a lot of the political games, and we give you a chance because you may be a cousin, a family, but when we say no to you, you don't come back.
I love
So this is a warning.
I love that. All right, guys, time check. It is now 9:20, so we are looking to close off. So I want to close off with one question, one final question, and that is, what should the people of Tobago be watching closely in the first, let's say, 6 to 12 months of this new THA2?
I think one of the things we need to look at is that come Friday, when that amendment is made to the bill, to the THA Act with regard to the expansion of the number of secretaries. I know this is something that they feel very passionate about, because in adding the number of secretaries that can be, and this is to tell you, this is to tell you that this is why autonomy is important, because imagine the vision of a leader to want to expand the number of secretaries for a greater delivery of services has to go to Parliament. It goes to tell you, right? So that's the first thing. And the fact that as quickly as they won, this thing is coming very quickly to the Parliament on Friday. It goes to tell you that there was some planning in place. But one, it's what the framework looks like when the bill is passed and the amendment is made, and who the people are who is assigned the responsibility. And for me, I think everybody's talking about the activation of the airport, the operationalization of that big square building. The point is, it makes no sense activating a building that is going to be empty for the most parts. And so I look forward to one of the things being delivered is an actual framework for the tourism blueprint and the tourism product that comes out of Tobago. One. Two, I look at an increase in the number, and I believe that, with the right persons leading the charge in this, that the central government will allow for a devolution of the authority, but increase flights into Tobago, even if it means starting off with an airline and an aircraft of 50 persons coming from Miami directly to Scarborough. I think you start small, and I'm using that based on the fact that in 2023 or in 2024, American Airlines started flying a direct flight from Miami to Tortola with a very small aircraft that started as a test of 50 persons once a week. That has now increased to like 3-4 flights per week. So increased airlift, increased flights. In the conversation on Monday night, one of the conversations was about the envy of the Bajan product. I look forward to the development of a Tobago product that rivals the Bajan or the Grenadian or the St. Vincent product. So increased airlift, more investment from the and how that model builds out from the private sector, because it's something that they've been talking about with regard to employment. So for me, those are the things that I think are easy deliverables in the 6 to 12 months is short term. And really the products that come out of the agriculture division, because I know that Natasha Charles Panton has invested a lot of time and energy and effort into bolstering the agriculture sector in Tobago. So those are the things for me, I think, is what I'm looking forward to.
I just want to jump in to polish up some of that. Very key to having this development and some of the things that we look forward to really become a reality and have it sustainable, I think, is a question of the safety and security of the persons in and around the island of Tobago. And while we look to secure every visitor here and every person here enjoying the island, the beautiful flora and fauna, we also have to consider where even we would look towards building out the agriculture sector and really expanding on that, the question of predio larceny as well. Ensuring that farmers are really given the opportunity to farm and plant with a secured mindset, and they are given the developmental infrastructure to build out the road accesses, and even where a stronger system where their produce and whatever they bring to the market can be uh, processed, for that storage. So at least we could benefit from it, in so far as to reduce that import bill. All right. So these are some of, the short-term measures, right? Because we know the investor confidence is critical where, you have a stable economy. And of course, room stock, as we look at the airlift and the sea bridge, a lot of persons want to come to Tobago, but being able to successfully get here is important, but also having the type of accommodation that we are satisfied in enjoying. So these are some of the things that we need to push forward to quickly to getting Tobago moving in its developmental path.
Okay, I know you both have said a lot and you've said a lot of some very insightful things, but I just want to invite you all now to make your closing remarks. Dr. Mohammed, we could probably start with you.
I just think that this is a remarkable accomplishment by a group of young persons. I mean, to be led by young people, this new generation of leadership, as I call it, is something that must be marked with excellence, and it must be marked by leadership of a difference. And like Bevon, I do believe that he's right 100% with Tobagonians being their own watchdogs and will be guarding their democracy very much with their fingers and their voices. And my advice would be, do not squander the goodwill of the people by getting corrupt by what is perceived to be power, because true power really lies in service as it pertains to the delivery of goods and services for which you've signed a contract to deliver with the people. And therefore, in the years to come, it must be said, not that the TPP came into office on a high and then they just simply left with nothing, but the TPP fulfilled a mandate that continuously allowed them to have a presence not only in the THA and to lead in the THA, but to also continue to maintain a presence in the national parliament, so that it's attaining power. I always say it's not just about the attainment of power, it is about sustaining power. And true power and true leadership and victories at the political level is not only in attaining the power, but also sustaining the power in the long term for the greater good of the people.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Mohammed. Mr. Dennis, over to you.
I would close by saying, this victory by the Tobago House of Assembly and us having at the moment the two seats, the East and the West, gives the Tobago population and the THA and the central government an opportunity, if it wants to really expand the Twin Island and expand Tobago, that we look seriously at involving the youths, conditioning and getting the youth involved, of course, more in governance, in politics, in civics, understanding the nature of it and how important it is for not just economic growth, but for their survival. And I say that because we exist as a country in the region. Recently, we saw travel bans and all these things. We saw visa restrictions and all these type of things. And Trinidad and Tobago, I recognize both islands as significant in the region. We are going to continue to be players in the region that others look to. And they cannot look towards us with greatness if we do not prepare our young people to really hold the mantle when many of us have gone down. So building requires nurturing our human resource and educating the people about governance and giving them the opportunity to participate.
Thank you very much, political activist Mr. Bevon Dennis. Well, Donnie, it's all yours.
Years ago, Tobago was red. Then it had a two-color. Now it's totally blue as it relates to general and THA elections. Tobago is as strong as it could be. taken in consideration that. And I think now is where, clearly from what Mr. Dennis has said as well, where the people in Tobago feel comfortable. They see a good relationship with central government. Now it's really Tobago first, right? And I think Tobago will grow, Tobago will develop, and they should do so sustainably because they are starting with best case scenario. I think that in general, when we look at what occurred on Monday, which followed the general elections and stuff like that, it is clear that, and I'll speak from a Trinidadian perspective, the PNM is at its worst right now. The PNM has never been more disseminated, and now is the time where both Trinidad and Tobago can get together. We could heal whatever took place before, taking in consideration how things has been over the 9.5 years from before April, and we could really become one again, and we could develop as Trinidad and Tobago. I think that the ingredients are right, and the playing field is present. So we look forward to it. Congratulations to the TPP. Mr. Dennis, thank you for being on our program. Thank you for accepting the invite. Dr. Mohammed, as usual, it's always a pleasure to have you. Over to you, Lisha.
Okay. Well, I just have to add to what Donnie said, and I want to thank Dr. Shane Mohammed, political analyst extraordinaire, such a popular person. I'm honored that we were able to get him on this program tonight. And also TPP political analyst, Mr. Bevon Dennis. It was such a pleasure to have you here tonight, and I do hope you join us again. This was a very great, insightful discussion on the outcome of the THA elections. As Donnie would have said, blue wash. The whole country was blue wash, right? The extraordinary clean sweep of 15-0, right? We went into what it means for Tobago, what it means for Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. What are we to expect in the next 6 to 12 months, right? Myself personally, what I am observing and what I'm seeing and actually hearing from Mr. Dennis tonight is empowerment. Empowerment for the people of Tobago, and that is such a great thing. So I do think we have a lot of good, exciting things to look forward to in Tobago, and maybe in 6 months' time, we can have a follow-up on this conversation because it really was unenjoyable. I can't believe an hour and a half just went like that already. So to all our viewers joining us on Zoom, social media, I want to thank you all for joining us. We do have a regular group that is with us week after week. Thank you for your questions, your comments, your interest in this program. We would have said last week that this is actually season 4. It's the 4th year of this program.
Yeah.
But I've kicked off last week. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to keep you all much longer. So, thank you again. Stay safe and join us again. We will be back on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Hopefully, nothing will come up for our regular program. So, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago. Good night. See you next week.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.